My name is Maya Torres, and the morning I turned 18, I woke up to find my entire world had been decided without me. The small apartment in Des Moines smelled like burned coffee and something sour I couldn't quite place. My stepmother, Patricia Simmons, was sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers spread out in front of her like weapons. She didn't wish me happy birthday. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Sign these," she said, tapping a pen against the documents. Her voice was flat, cold, like I was a stranger asking for directions, instead of the girl who'd lived under this roof for 6 years. I picked up the top page, trying to make sense of the legal language. Trust fund, relinquishment of rights, transfer of assets. The numbers swam in front of my eyes, but one thing was crystal clear. $1.8 million. The money my mom left me before she died. The money that was supposed to be mine when I turned 18. "Today, what is this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Patricia finally looked at me, and the coldness in her eyes made my stomach drop. "Your mother never meant for you to have all that money, Maya. You're just a kid. You'll waste it. This paperwork transfers the trust to your father, James Torres, where it belongs, with the family." "But it's mine," I said, gripping the paper harder. "Mom left it to me." "Sign it or get out." Patricia stood up, crossing her arms over her chest. "You have 10 minutes to decide. Either you're part of this family or you're not." I looked past her to the hallway where my father stood in the shadows. He was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, saying nothing, just watching. My stepbrother, Marcus, appeared behind him, a smirk already spreading across his face, like this was the best entertainment he'd had all week. "Dad," I said, my voice cracking. He looked away. That's when I knew they'd planned this. All of them. Together. "I'm not signing," I said, setting the papers down on the table. Patricia's face went red. "Then pack your things and get out of my house." "This was Mom's house first," I shot back, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "And now it's mine." Patricia stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You have 10 minutes. After that, I'm changing the locks." I didn't have much to pack. Most of my things still fit in the same purple backpack I'd carried in middle school. Clothes, a photo of my mom, the necklace she gave me before she got sick, my phone charger. That was it. That was everything I owned that mattered. When I walked out the front door, the January air hit me like a slap. Des Moines in winter is brutal, the kind of cold that gets inside your bones and stays there. I stood on the sidewalk, breath fogging in front of my face, and realized I had nowhere to go. $53 in my pocket. No plan, no backup. But I started walking anyway. I'd been walking the same route for months, cutting through the downtown area, on my way home from my shift at the coffee shop. There was a woman I always saw sitting near the bus station. Older, maybe in her 70s, wrapped in layers of coats and blankets even when it wasn't that cold. She never asked for money, never called out to people passing by. She just sat there quietly with a small cardboard sign that said, "God bless," in faded marker. Every time I passed, I'd drop whatever I could spare into the coffee can beside her. $1, sometimes $5 if I'd had a good tick day. She always nodded, never spoke, just looked at me with these sharp, knowing eyes that seemed to see straight through everything. That night, with nowhere else to go, I walked past her corner again. It was almost midnight. The streets were empty, except for a few cars and the distant sound of a siren. I wasn't even planning to stop. I was just walking, trying to figure out what came next. But as I got closer, she looked up, and this time she spoke. "Maya." I froze. I'd never told her my name. "Come here, child." Her voice was rough, like she didn't use it often, but there was something urgent in it. Something that made my feet move before my brain caught up. I crouched down beside her, and she reached out with one thin hand and gripped my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold, but her grip was strong. "You listen to me," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "Tonight, you do not sleep on the street. You do not go to the shelter. You do not stay anywhere they expect you to be. You hear me? Who are you? I whispered. Someone who's seen this before. She let go of my wrist and reached into the folds of her coat, pulling out a small, crumpled $20 bill. Take this. Find a motel, pay cash, lock the door. Tomorrow morning, you come back here. I have something for you that might just save your life. I stared at the 20 in her outstretched hand. I can't take your money. You can, and you will. She pressed it into my palm. Go, now. I didn't argue. Something in her voice told me not to. This is Revenge Stories, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Help us build this community so we can bring more interesting and exciting stories for you from around the world. Your help is much appreciated. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. I found a motel 6 blocks away, the Riverside Inn. The sign was half burnt out and the parking lot was mostly empty, except for a couple of trucks and a sedan with a missing bumper. Inside, the lobby smelled like stale cigarettes and cleaning solution that didn't quite cover up something worse underneath. The clerk behind the desk didn't ask questions. I slid my $53 plus the 20 the woman had given me across the counter, and he handed me a key attached to a plastic diamond keychain. Room 22. Checkouts at 11. No visitors. He went back to scrolling on his phone before I even turned around. The room was small and dim, with brown carpet that had seen better days and a bedspread that I didn't want to look at too closely. But the door locked, the window had bars on it, and for the first time in hours, I could breathe. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my coat, and let the tears come. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, exhausted crying that came from somewhere deep and hopeless. I cried for my mom. I cried for the family I thought I had. I cried for the girl I'd been that morning, who still believed her father might choose her. Eventually, I ran out of tears. I lay down, pulled the scratchy blanket over me, and closed my eyes. Sleep came in fragments, broken by every sound in the hallway, every car door slamming outside. When the pale gray light of morning started creeping through the curtains, I got up, splashed cold water on my face in the tiny bathroom, and headed back to the bus station. The woman was already there. Same spot, same blankets. But today she was sitting up straighter, and when she saw me coming, something like relief crossed her face. Good, she said as I sat down beside her on the cold concrete. You listened. You knew my name, I said. How? I heard that girl from the coffee shop call you by it a few weeks ago. I've been watching you, Maya. Watching your face every time you walked past. You've been carrying something heavy for a long time. My mom died 2 years ago, I said quietly. Everything's been different since. I know. She nodded slowly. Let me tell you something. My name is Lorraine Hughes. I've been on these streets for 11 years, but I wasn't always here. I used to have a house, a job, a son. What happened? Same thing that almost happened to you. Her voice turned bitter. Greed. My son, his wife. They decided I was worth more dead than alive. Tried to make it look like an accident. Carbon monoxide leak while I was sleeping. If my neighbor hadn't smelled the gas and called the fire department, I'd be gone. I felt my blood go cold. They tried to kill you? They did. And when the police investigated, they found all the evidence they needed. Text messages, bank statements showing they'd taken out a life insurance policy on me without my knowledge. But by the time the case went to trial, I'd lost everything. The legal bills, the trauma, the betrayal. I couldn't go back to that life. So I ended up here. I'm so sorry, I whispered. Lorraine reached into her coat again, but this time she pulled out something different. A small black USB drive, wrapped in a plastic bag. This is for you, she said, placing it in my hand. About a week ago, I noticed someone watching you. A young man, expensive jacket, new sneakers, always standing just far enough away that you wouldn't notice. But I noticed. So I bought a cheap camera from the pawn shop and set it up on that lamppost across the street. Motion activated. It's been recording ever since. My heart started pounding. What's on it? I don't know exactly. I can't see small screens anymore. My eyes are too bad. But I know this. Whatever's on there, you need to see it alone first. Then you decide what to do. I stared at the USB drive. Why are you helping me? Because nobody helped me, she said simply. And because I see that same look in your stepmother's eyes that I saw in my son's wife, desperation, greed, the belief that you're standing between them and something they think they deserve. People like that don't stop, Maya. Not unless someone stops them first. I closed my fingers around the drive. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promised. The Des Moines Public Library opened at 9. I waited outside the doors, backpack over my shoulder, USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. The moment the librarian unlocked the entrance, I was inside, heading straight for the computer stations in the back corner. I chose the one farthest from the door, wedged between two tall bookshelves where nobody could see the screen unless they were standing right behind me. I plugged in the drive and one file appeared. Video file, timestamp from 4 nights ago. I clicked play. The footage was grainy, black and white, night vision. At first, it was just the empty street, the bus station in the background, a few cars passing. Then 2 figures appeared, walking quickly, both carrying red plastic gas cans. My stomach dropped. I recognized them immediately. Marcus, my stepbrother, and his friend, Tyler Chen, a guy he'd been hanging around with since high school. They were laughing, talking too quietly for the camera to pick up the words. They walked to the bench where I'd been sitting just hours before the library closed. The bench where I sometimes slept when I couldn't afford the motel. Marcus set his gas can down and pulled out his phone. He angled it toward the street light, and for just a second, the screen was visible. A text message thread. The name at the top made my blood turn to ice. Patricia Simmons, my stepmother. Marcus turned to Tyler, and this time the audio was just clear enough to catch his words. She signs the papers on Friday. Is she still around? If she's not, the money goes to my stepdad automatically. That's what the trust says. After Friday, it's too late. Tyler laughed. So we just make sure she's not around? Exactly. Marcus unscrewed the cap on the gas can. One less problem. They started pouring gasoline across the bench, across the grass, across the exact spot where I would have been lying if Lorraine hadn't warned me. Then Marcus pulled out a lighter, flicked it once, and tossed it. The flames erupted instantly, roaring up into the night. Both of them stepped back, watching, and Marcus lifted his phone to film it. He was grinning. Done, he said into the camera. Let's get out of here. The video ended. I sat frozen, staring at the blank screen. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists to make them stop. They'd tried to kill me, my own stepbrother, under orders from my stepmother, because they thought if I was gone, the money would automatically go to my father, to them. But they were wrong. I pulled out the copy of my mother's trust document that I'd grabbed before leaving the apartment. The pages were wrinkled, but the words were clear. I read the clause they'd been so confident about. Should the beneficiary fail to claim the trust assets by the designated date, all funds shall transfer to the estate backup plan as outlined in Section 7. I flipped to Section 7. In the event Maya Torres is unable or unwilling to claim the trust principal, all assets shall be donated in full to the Grace Memorial Scholarship Fund for underserved youth in Polk County. No portion shall revert to James Torres or any member of his household. They were going to kill me for money they were never going to get anyway. I yanked the USB drive out of the computer, shoved it back into my pocket, and pulled out my phone. My hands were still shaking, but I managed to pull up the number for the Des Moines Police Department non-emergency line. Then I stopped. If I called now, what would happen? They'd send an officer. I'd explain. They'd want to see the video. They'd start an investigation. And Patricia would lawyer up immediately. She'd claim it was all Marcus acting alone. She'd say she had no idea. She'd twist it, delay it, tie it up in legal motions until the whole thing fell apart. I needed more. I needed someone I could trust. Someone who'd believe me and help me do this right. I scrolled through my contacts and landed on a name I hadn't called in months. Jenna Park. We'd been best friends all through high school until life got messy after my mom died. She texted a few times, tried to check in, but I'd pushed her away. I didn't want to drag her into my mess. But Jenna's mom was a lawyer, a good one. If anyone would know what to do, it was her. I hit call. She answered on the third ring, voice cautious. Maya? Jenna, my voice cracked. I need help. There was a pause and then her voice softened. Where are you? Public library, downtown. Stay there. I'm coming. She hung up before I can say anything else. 20 minutes later, Jenna pushed through the library doors, scanning the room until she spotted me. She looked the same. Black hair pulled into a ponytail, oversized sweatshirt, the same beat-up Converse she'd been wearing since junior year. When she reached me, she didn't ask questions first. She just pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, I whispered into her shoulder. I'm sorry I disappeared. Shut up, she said. But her voice was gentle. You're here now. That's what matters. We sat down at the table, and I told her everything. The trust, Patricia. The threats, getting kicked out, Lorraine, the video. All of it. I showed her the footage on the library computer, and I watched her face go from confused to horrified to absolutely furious. When it was over, she sat back in her chair and exhaled slowly. We're taking this to the police, she said. Right now. Will they believe me? With this video? Yeah, they will. But we're going to do this smart. My mom has a contact at the police department, a detective who handles arsons and attempted homicides. We're going to go through her so this doesn't get buried or mishandled. Your mom will help? Jenna gave me a look. Maya, my mom has been asking about you for months. She knew something was wrong. She'll help. Trust me. We left the library together and drove to Jenna's house in her old Honda that smelled like fast food and vanilla air freshener. Her mom, Catherine Park, was in the kitchen making tea when we walked in. The moment she saw my face, she set the kettle down. Maya, she said, crossing the room and taking both my hands in hers. Are you all right? No, I said honestly, but I'm trying to be. Catherine listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I showed her the video, her expression turned grim and professional. She was quiet for a long moment after it ended. Then she pulled out her phone. I'm calling Detective Marco Reyes, she said. He's with the arson unit, and he's good. Thorough. He won't let this slide. The call lasted less than 5 minutes. When she hung up, she looked at me. He wants to see you today, now, if possible. Can you do that? I nodded. Good. Jenna and I are coming with you. You're not doing this alone. The Des Moines Police Department Central Station was a gray building downtown with too many fluorescent lights and floors that echoed when you walked. Catherine led us through the lobby, past the front desk, and into a hallway lined with interview rooms. Detective Marco Reyes met us in room 3. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s. With dark hair and tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. He shook my hand, then Catherine's, then gestured for us to sit. Miss Torres, he said, sitting across from me. Mrs. Park explained the basics over the phone. I need you to tell me everything in your own words. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told him about my mom's death. The trust, Patricia's demand that I sign it over, getting kicked out, Lorraine, the video. I pulled the USB drive out and slid it across the table. "This is the footage," I said. "It shows my stepbrother, Marcus Simmons, and his friend pouring gasoline at the bus station where I sleep sometimes. It also shows text messages from my stepmother telling him to do it." Reyes picked up the drive, turned it over in his hand, and plugged it into his laptop without a word. He watched the entire video twice. I watched his face the whole time. It didn't give anything away until the very end, when Marcus tossed the lighter and the flames shot up. Then his jaw tightened. He closed the laptop. "This is attempted murder," he said quietly. "Arson with intent to cause harm. Conspiracy. Your stepmother and stepbrother are looking at serious prison time if we can make this stick." "Can you?" I asked. "With this video, yes. It's clear. It's time-stamped. It shows motive, intent, and execution. But I need to verify a few things first. The metadata on the file, the location. I'll need a formal statement from you and from the woman who recorded this. Lorraine Hughes," I said. "She's usually at the bus station downtown. I'll find her." Reyes made a note. "In the meantime, I need you to stay somewhere safe. Do you have a place?" "She's staying with us," Catherine said firmly before I could answer. "For as long as she needs." Reyes nodded. "Good. I'll start the paperwork for an arrest warrant. We'll move fast. With evidence this solid, I can have them both in custody by tomorrow morning." I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, not yet, but something close. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Reyes said, standing up. "This is just the beginning." That night, I slept in Jenna's room on an air mattress that squeaked every time I moved. But it didn't matter. For the first time in days, I felt safe. The door was locked. Jenna was in the bed 3 feet away. Catherine checked on us twice before midnight just to make sure I was okay. I woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen. Jenna was already awake, scrolling through her phone. "Reyes texted my mom," she said without looking up. "They're picking up Marcus this morning, Patricia too." My stomach flipped. "Already? They move fast. Judge signed the warrants last night." Jenna finally looked at me. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," I admitted. "But also, I don't know, like maybe this is real. Like maybe something's actually going to happen." "Something is going to happen," Jenna said. "They're going to pay for what they did." We went downstairs. Catherine handed me a mug of coffee and a plate of toast, and I ate slowly, trying not to think about what was happening across town right now, trying not to picture Marcus getting pulled out of bed in handcuffs, trying not to imagine Patricia's face. But I couldn't stop. At 9:47 a.m., Reyes called. "They're in custody," he said without preamble. "Both of them." Marcus tried to run out the back door. Officers were waiting. Patricia tried to lawyer up immediately, but she's being processed now. "I'll need you to come in later today for a follow-up statement. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. "Good. I'll text Mrs. Park the time." He hung up. I set the phone down and looked at Jenna and Catherine. "They arrested them." Catherine smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's just step one, Maya. Now the real fight begins." She was right. The arraignment happened 3 days later. I sat in the courtroom gallery between Jenna and Catherine, hands clenched in my lap, watching as Patricia and Marcus were brought in wearing orange jumpsuits and handcuffs. Patricia's lawyer, a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit, immediately started filing motions for bail reduction. Marcus's public defender looked exhausted before the hearing even started. The prosecutor, a woman named Angela Ruiz, presented the video evidence. The entire courtroom watched in silence as Marcus poured gasoline and tossed the lighter. When the flames roared up on the screen, I heard someone behind me gasp. The judge, an older woman with steel gray hair and no patience for nonsense, denied bail for both of them. "Given the severity of the charges and the clear evidence of intent to harm," she said, "I find that both defendants pose a significant flight risk and danger to the community. Bail is denied. Trial date will be set within 60 days. Patricia's lawyer stood up immediately, arguing, but the judge cut him off with one look. Denied. Next case. I watched as they were led out. Patricia turned and looked directly at me for the first time since this all started. Her eyes were full of rage and something else. Desperation, fear. Good. Outside the courthouse, Angela Ruiz found us on the steps. "Miss Torres," she said, extending a hand. "You did the right thing coming forward. This case is solid. I don't say that often, but with this evidence, we're looking at convictions on all counts." "What happens now?" I asked. "We prepare for trial. I'll need to meet with you several more times to go over your testimony. The defense will try to poke holes, but with that video, there's not much they can do." She paused. "There is one thing you should know. Your father, James Torres, he's been trying to contact me, asking if there's any way to get the charges dropped." My chest tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That the state is prosecuting, not you. Even if you wanted to drop it, which I'm guessing you don't, I wouldn't let you." She looked at me steadily. "This isn't just about you anymore. They committed serious crimes. They're going to answer for them." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Angela handed me her card. "Call me if you need anything. And Maya, you're braver than you think." I wasn't sure I believed her, but I kept the card anyway. The weeks leading up to the trial were strange. I moved in with Jenna and her family officially. Catherine helped me file paperwork to access my trust fund early under emergency circumstances, and a judge granted it once they saw the evidence of why I'd been kicked out. The $1.8 million transferred into an account in my name only. No co-signers. No access for anyone else. I used some of it to hire Catherine as my attorney to make sure everything was protected legally. I used more to pay rent to Jenna's family, even though they refused at first. And I used the rest to do something I've been thinking about since the night Lorraine handed me that USB drive. I found her at the bus station on a cold Tuesday afternoon. "Lorraine," I said, crouching down beside her, "I need to talk to you." She looked up, and something like relief crossed her face. "You're all right. Because of you." I pulled an envelope out of my coat and handed it to her. "I want you to open this." She frowned, but took it. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a printed sheet of paper with an address on it. "What is this?" she whispered. "It's a deposit on an apartment," I said. "A real one, with heat and running water and a door that locks. I already paid the first year's rent. The rest is for you. For food, clothes, whatever you need." Lorraine stared at the check, then at me. Her hands were shaking. "I can't take this." "You can," I said, echoing the words she'd said to me that first night. "You saved my life, Lorraine. This is me saying thank you. You don't have to live on the street anymore. Not unless you want to." She looked at me for a long moment, and then the tears started. Not loud or dramatic, just quiet, exhausted crying that came from somewhere deep. I sat beside her and waited until she was ready. "Thank you," she finally whispered. "Thank you," I said back. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The courtroom was packed every single day. Reporters, curious onlookers, a few people from my old high school who I hadn't seen in years. I sat in the front row with Jenna and Catherine, and I didn't miss a single moment. The prosecution presented the video first. They showed it on a screen so large that every detail was visible. Marcus's face, Tyler's laugh, the text from Patricia, the flames. The jury watched in complete silence. Then they called me to the stand. Angela walked me through everything. My mother's death, the trust, the night I got kicked out, Lorraine's warning, finding the video. I spoke clearly, kept my voice steady, and told the truth. Patricia's lawyer tried to trip me up. During cross-examination, "Miss Torres, isn't it true that you and your stepmother had a contentious relationship?" "Yes." "And isn't it possible that you're exaggerating the events of that night because you were angry?" "No. But you admit you were upset? I was upset because she threw me out of my home with nothing and then tried to have me killed. My voice didn't shake. That's not exaggeration. That's fact. The lawyer moved on quickly after that. They called Marcus to the stand next. He tried to claim the video was taken out of context, that it was all just a prank gone wrong, that he never actually intended to hurt anyone. But when Angela played the video again and asked him to explain exactly which part was a prank, he couldn't answer. Patricia didn't testify. Her lawyer advised against it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the 4 women stood and read the verdict. On the charge of attempted murder, we find the defendant, Marcus Simmons, guilty. On the charge of arson in the first degree, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant, Patricia Simmons, guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Every single charge. Patricia's face crumpled. Marcus sat frozen, staring straight ahead like he couldn't process what was happening. I felt Jenna grab my hand and squeeze, but I didn't look away from them. I wanted to see this. I needed to see this. Sentencing happened 2 weeks later. Marcus got 12 years. Patricia got 15. The judge's final words echoed through the courtroom. You targeted a vulnerable young woman out of pure greed, and when she refused to bend to your will, you decided she was disposable. This court does not tolerate that kind of cruelty. These sentences reflect the severity of your actions and the harm you intended to cause. They were let out in handcuffs. I walked out of that courtroom into the bright afternoon sun, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. 6 months after the sentencing, I was sitting in the living room of the house I'd bought on the east side of Des Moines. It wasn't huge, just a simple 3-bedroom with a front porch and a backyard that got good morning light. But it was mine. Every wall, every floorboard, every window. Mine. Jenna lived in the 2nd bedroom. She'd enrolled at Drake University with the scholarship fund I'd set up in my mother's name, studying social work, because she said she wanted to help people the way her family had helped me. Lorraine had the 3rd bedroom. She'd moved in 3 months ago after I found her trying to give the apartment back, insisting she didn't deserve it. I told her that was ridiculous and that I had plenty of space. She cried for an hour, then finally said yes. The 3 of us had dinner together most nights. Nothing fancy. Pasta, stir-fry, whatever we could figure out between Jenna's classes and my meetings with the financial advisor Catherine had helped me find. We painted the kitchen yellow. We put up pictures. We planted tomatoes in the backyard even though none of us knew what we were doing. It felt like family. Real family. The kind you choose. The kind that chooses you back. But there was still one piece missing. One conversation I hadn't been able to have. My father. James Torres hadn't tried to contact me since before the trial. He'd shown up at the courthouse once during jury selection, sitting in the back row, but he'd left before I could say anything. Catherine told me he'd tried to submit a character witness statement for Patricia, but the judge had rejected it. After that, nothing. Silence. I told myself I was okay with it, that I didn't need closure, that walking away was enough. But it wasn't. So one Saturday afternoon in late August, I drove to the address I'd found through a public records search. A small duplex near the river, paint peeling, grass overgrown. His truck was parked in the driveway, the same faded blue pickup he'd been driving since I was in middle school. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide if I was really going to do this. Then I got out before I could change my mind. I knocked on the door. He answered after a long pause, and the look on his face when he saw me was something I couldn't quite read. Surprise, guilt, maybe relief. "Maya," he said quietly. "Hi, Dad." We stood there for a moment, the screen door between us like a barrier neither of us knew how to cross. "Can I come in?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded and pushed the door open. The inside of the duplex was exactly what I had expected. Sparse, messy, a couch with a blanket thrown over it, a TV playing a baseball game on mute, a kitchen table covered in unopened mail. It smelled stale, like someone who'd stopped caring about things like fresh air and clean laundry. "You want something to drink?" he asked, already moving toward the kitchen like he needed something to do with his hands. "No, I just want to talk." He nodded and sat down on the couch. I stayed standing. "Why didn't you stop them?" The words came out before I'd even decided to say them. "That night, when Patricia told me to sign the papers or get out, you were right there. You didn't say anything. You just let it happen." He looked down at his hands. I thought she was bluffing. "And when she wasn't? I thought you'd come back. I thought you'd cool off and come home and we'd figure it out." I was 18 years old, Dad. I had $50 and nowhere to go, and you just stood there. "I know." His voice cracked. "I know, Maya. I've been replaying that night in my head every single day since. I should have stopped her. I should have stood up for you. I should have done 100 things differently. Why didn't you?" He was quiet for a long time. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. "Because I was weak. Because I was scared of her. Because I convinced myself that the trust was meant to keep the family together, and that if you just signed it, everything would be fine. I was wrong about everything. They tried to kill me." My voice shook, but I kept going. "Your wife and your stepson poured gasoline where I slept and lit it on fire because they thought it would get them my mother's money. Did you know? Before it happened? Did you know?" "No." He stood up, shaking his head hard. "No, Maya, I swear to you I didn't know. When the police came to arrest them, I thought there'd been some kind of mistake. When they showed me the video, I didn't want to believe it. But you did believe it. Eventually. Yeah, I did." He rubbed his face with both hands. "And I've had to live with the fact that I married someone capable of that I brought her into your life, that I let her drive you away. I don't expect you to forgive me." "I wouldn't forgive me either." I looked at him standing there in his wrinkled t-shirt and worn-out jeans, looking 10 years older than he should. And I felt something I wasn't expecting. Pity. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just pity for a man who'd made bad choices and lost everything because of them. "I didn't come here to forgive you," I said quietly. "I came here to tell you that I'm okay, that I survived, that I built something good out of the mess you all left me in. I have a house, I have people who care about me, I have a future, and I did it all without you." He nodded slowly, tears running down his face now. I'm so glad you're okay. I also came to tell you that I'm done." I took a breath. "I'm done being angry. I'm done carrying this around. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking back. I understand. But I'm also done trying to have a relationship with you." I kept my voice steady, even though my chest felt like it was cracking open. "You made your choice that night. You chose her. You chose to stay silent, and I can't forget that. I won't. I'm not asking for anything from you. I just needed you to hear me say this. I needed to say it out loud." P didn't try to argue. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, and nodded. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything. I'm so sorry." I know. And I did. I could see it in every line of his face. But sorry doesn't fix this. I turned and walked to the door. He didn't try to stop me. "Maya," he called just as I reached for the handle. I looked back. "Your mom would be proud of you," he said, "the woman you've become. She'd be so proud." Something tightened in my throat, but I didn't let the tears fall. Not here, not now. "Yeah," I said quietly, "she would." And then I left. I cried in the car on the drive home, not the silent, exhausted crying from that first night at the motel. Not the broken, desperate crying from the courtroom. This was something different. something that felt like grief and relief all tangled together. I cried for the dad I'd had before my mom got sick, the one who used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings and help me with my math homework and tell terrible jokes that made Mom roll her eyes. I cried for the man he'd been and the man he could have been if he'd just chosen differently. But mostly, I cried because I was finally letting go. When I got home, Jenna was in the kitchen making spaghetti, and Lorraine was setting the table. They both looked up when I walked in, and I knew they could tell I'd been crying. "You okay?" Jenna asked. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "I went to see my dad." Lorraine's hand paused over a fork. "How did it go?" she asked. It went exactly how it needed to. I grabbed a plate and joined them at the table. I said what I needed to say, and now I'm done. Jenna reached over and squeezed my hand. "Good." We ate dinner together, the three of us, and talked about normal things. Jenna's classes, Lorraine's knitting project, the tomatoes in the backyard that were finally starting to turn red. And it felt right. It felt like home. Later that night, I sat on the front porch with a cup of tea and looked up at the stars. The August air was warm and still, and somewhere down the street, I could hear kids laughing and a dog barking. I thought about everything that had happened: the night I got kicked out, Lorraine's warning, the video, the trial, the verdict, my father's face today when I told him I was done. And I thought about my mom. She'd set up that trust to protect me. She'd written those clauses to make sure that even if I couldn't access the money right away, it would still be safe. She'd known, somehow, that people might try to take it from me. She'd planned for it. And in the end, her planning had saved my life. "I miss you," I whispered to the night sky. "But I'm okay. I'm really okay." The stars didn't answer, but I felt something anyway. A warmth that settled in my chest and stayed there. A sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd won. And now I was finally free. The fall semester started, and Jenna threw herself into her classes with the kind of intensity that made me tired just watching her. She'd come home with stacks of textbooks and highlighted notes, talking about case studies and social systems and all the ways she wanted to change the world. Lorraine started volunteering at the community center downtown, teaching knitting classes to kids after school. She said it gave her something to do, but I think it gave her something more than that: purpose, connection, a reason to get up in the morning that wasn't just survival. As for me, I enrolled at Des Moines Area Community College. Part-time, just 2 classes to start: Introduction to Business and English Composition. I wasn't sure yet what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, but I figured learning how to manage money and write clearly was a good place to start. Catherine Park helped me set up a foundation in my mother's name, the Grace Torres Foundation for At-Risk Youth. We used part of the trust to fund scholarships, emergency housing assistance, and legal aid for young people aging out of foster care or escaping bad family situations, the kind of help I wished I'd had that first night. Our first recipient was a 17-year-old girl named Aisha Martin, who'd been kicked out by her parents for being gay. She'd been sleeping in her car and trying to finish high school at the same time. We paid for her housing, bought her a laptop, and connected her with a therapist. When she graduated in the spring with a 3.8 GPA and a full ride to the University of Iowa, she sent me a thank you card that I kept on my desk. "You gave me a second chance," she wrote. "I'm going to make it count." I read that card whenever I needed a reminder of why all of this mattered. One afternoon in October, I got a call from Detective Reyes. "Miss Torres," he said, "I wanted to give you an update. Patricia Simmons filed an appeal last month. It was denied this morning. The conviction stands. She'll serve the full 15 years unless she's granted parole, which, given the circumstances, is unlikely." "And Marcus?" I asked. "Same. His appeal was denied last week. He's currently at the State Correctional Facility in Fort Dodge. No early release eligibility for another 8 years." Thank you for letting me know. There's one more thing. He paused. Tyler Chen, the friend who helped Marcus that night, he took a plea deal, testified against both of them during the trial. He got 3 years, suspended sentence, 5 years probation. He's out. My stomach tightened. Should I be worried? No. Part of his probation is a no-contact order. He can't come within 500 feet of you. If he violates it, he goes straight to prison. We're keeping an eye on him. But I wanted you to know. Okay, thanks. After we hung up, I sat with that information for a while. Tyler was out, walking around, free, while Marcus and Patricia were locked up. It didn't feel fair, but then again, none of this had ever been fair. I thought about calling Jenna or Catherine, but instead, I pulled on my jacket and drove to the bus station downtown. Lorraine wasn't there anymore, of course, but I still went sometimes, just to sit on the bench and remember. The corner looked different now, cleaner. The city had installed new streetlights and a small plaque on the lamppost where Lorraine had mounted her camera. In memory of community vigilance, it read. I'd donated the money for that, too. I sat on the bench and watched people pass. Commuters heading home, students with backpacks, a couple holding hands. Ordinary life, moving forward, like it always did. And I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I'd been carrying that anger for so long, it had become a part of me. Anger at Patricia, at Marcus, at my father, at the unfairness of losing my mom and then losing everything else too. But somewhere along the way, without even noticing, I'd set it down. I didn't forgive them. Forgiveness wasn't the point. But I wasn't letting them take up space in my head anymore. I wasn't giving them that power. I was choosing to move forward instead. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera. For months, I'd been documenting pieces of my story. Not for anyone else, just for me. A way to process everything that had happened. But lately, I'd been thinking about sharing it. About telling my story publicly so that maybe, somewhere, someone else going through something similar would know they weren't alone. Jenna had suggested I start a blog. Lorraine thought I should write a book. Catherine said I should wait until I was ready and not rush into anything. I didn't know what the right answer was, but I knew I wanted to do something. So I opened a new note on my phone and started typing. My name is Maya Torres, and this is the story of how I survived my family trying to kill me. The words felt heavy and light at the same time. True. Real. Mine. I kept writing. By the time winter rolled around, the foundation had helped 12 young people, 12 kids who'd been thrown out, abandoned, or betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect them. 12 second chances. We held our first fundraiser in December, a small dinner at a local community center with donated food and a silent auction. I didn't expect many people to show up, but the room was packed. Teachers, social workers. Former foster kids who'd aged out of the system. Local business owners. Even a few journalists who'd covered the trial and wanted to support the work we were doing. I stood at the front of the room with Jenna and Lorraine on either side of me, and I told my story. Not all of it, just enough. The night I got kicked out. The warning, the video, the trial. The choice to use what happened to me to help others. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then everyone. I looked out at all those faces, strangers and friends, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope, not just for me, for all of us, for every kid who'd ever been told they were worthless or disposable or in the way, for every person who'd survived something they shouldn't have had to survive. After the event, a woman approached me. She was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back in a bun, kind eyes. "Thank you for sharing your story," she said. "My daughter went through something similar. She didn't make it." My breath caught. "I'm so sorry." "Me too." She smiled sadly. "But what you're doing here, this foundation, it would have saved her." "I know it would have. So thank you. for doing this, for making sure other kids have a chance. She handed me a check for $5,000 and walked away before I could say anything else. I stood there holding the check, tears streaming down my face, and I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Spring came slowly to Des Moines. The snow melted, the trees started budding. The tomatoes in the backyard came back stronger than before. Jenna finished her first year of college with a 4.0 and immediately signed up for summer classes because she said she didn't want to waste time. Lorraine's knitting class at the community center had a waiting list, and I'd finished my 2 courses and signed up for 3 more in the fall. Life wasn't perfect. I still had bad days. Days when I thought about my mom and cried. Days when I wondered if my father ever thought about me. Days when the weight of everything that had happened felt too heavy to carry. But those days got fewer and farther between. And on the good days, which were most of them now, I felt something I'd almost forgotten was possible. Joy. One Saturday in May, I went back to visit the bus station one more time. I didn't go often anymore. Didn't need to. But today felt different, like I needed to close a loop I'd left open. The bench was empty. The corner was quiet. The lamppost still had Lorraine's plaque on it, gleaming in the afternoon sun. I sat down and pulled out my phone. I'd been working on something for weeks, a video. My story, told in my own words, with my own voice. I'd filmed it in pieces, late at night when the house was quiet, trying to find the right words to explain what had happened and what I'd learned. It wasn't polished, it wasn't professional, but it was honest. And maybe that was enough. I opened the YouTube app, uploaded the video, and titled it simply, How I Survived. Then I hit publish. I didn't expect anything to come of it. I just wanted it out there. Wanted to say the things I needed to say. Wanted someone, somewhere, to hear it and know they weren't alone. I put my phone away and sat on the bench for a while longer, watching the world move around me. And then I got up, walked to my car, and drove home. The video got 20 views in the first hour, then 100, then 1,000. By the next morning, it had 10,000 views and hundreds of comments. This happened to me too. Thank you for sharing. You're so brave. I needed to hear this today. You saved my life. I read every single one, sitting at the kitchen table with tears streaming down my face. Jenna sat beside me, reading over my shoulder, squeezing my hand every time I got too choked up to keep going. You did this, she said softly. You turned something terrible into something good. Do you see that? I nodded, not trusting my voice. The video kept growing. News outlets picked it up. Local first, then regional, then national. I did a few interviews, always from home, always with Jenna or Catherine beside me. I told my story over and over, and every time I got messages from people saying it had helped them leave a bad situation, helped them ask for help, helped them believe they deserved better. And that was worth everything. The foundation grew too. Donations poured in. We were able to help more kids, fund more scholarships, provide more resources. We hired a part-time case manager, then a full-time coordinator, then 2 more. By the end of the year, we'd helped 53 young people. 53 lives changed, 53 second chances. I thought about my mom a lot during those months, about the trust she'd set up, the protections she'd put in place, the way she'd tried to take care of me even after she was gone. She'd given me more than money. She'd given me a choice, the choice to survive, the choice to fight back, the choice to build something good out of the wreckage. And I'd taken it. 2 years after the trial, I graduated from community college with an associate degree in business administration. It wasn't a fancy ceremony, just a small auditorium, a handful of speeches, and a line of graduates in blue gowns. But when they called my name and I walked across that stage to accept my diploma, the people who mattered were there. Jenna, cheering louder than anyone else. Lorraine, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Catherine, smiling proudly from the 3rd row. And in the back, standing near the door like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there, my father. I saw him as I walked back to my seat. Our eyes met for just a second. He nodded once, a small, sad acknowledgement. I nodded back. Then I turned away and focused on the rest of the ceremony. After it was over, after the photos and the congratulations and the hugs, I found him in the parking lot. He was leaning against his truck, hands in his pockets, looking older than I remembered. "Hi," I said. "Hi." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Congratulations. Your mom would have been so proud." "Thanks." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said quickly. "I just wanted to see you walk across that stage. Wanted to be here for this, even if just from the back of the room." "I hope that's okay." "It's okay," I said, and I meant it, not because I'd forgiven him, not because we were going to rebuild some kind of relationship, but because I didn't need to carry anger toward him anymore. "How are you doing?" "I'm managing. Got a job at a warehouse. It's not much, but it's honest work." He paused. "I've been following what you're doing, the foundation, the kids you're helping. It's incredible, Maya. Really. Thank you. I know I don't have the right to say this, but I'm proud of you too, for everything you've built, for who you've become." I looked at him, this man who'd once been my whole world and then became a stranger, and I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but maybe, eventually, peace. "Take care of yourself, Dad," I said. "You too." I walked back to where Jenna and Lorraine were waiting by the car, and I didn't look back. That summer, I enrolled at Iowa State University to finish my bachelor's degree. I commuted from Des Moines an hour each way, but it was worth it. I didn't want to leave the house. Didn't want to leave Jenna and Lorraine. Didn't want to leave the foundation. This was my home now, the one I'd built, the one I'd chosen. The foundation kept growing. We opened a second location in Cedar Rapids, then a third in Sioux City. We partnered with schools and shelters and social service agencies across the state. We trained volunteers. We created resource guides. We showed up for kids the way someone had shown up for me, and every single time we helped someone, I thought about that night on the cold sidewalk when Lorraine handed me $20 and told me to find a motel. She'd saved my life with a warning and a camera. I was trying to do the same for others. 3 years after the trial, I got a letter in the mail. The return address was from the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women in Mitchellville, Patricia's prison. I stared at the envelope for a long time before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, handwriting I recognized immediately. "Maya," it began. "I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this. I needed to say that I'm sorry. For everything, for throwing you out, for what Marcus did, for putting greed above your safety and your life. There's no excuse for any of it. I've had 3 years to sit with what I did, and I understand now that I destroyed lives, including my own, because I couldn't see past money. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you're doing good things with your life. Your mother would be proud. I hope someday you can find peace. Patricia." I read the letter twice, then set it on the kitchen table. Jenna came in a few minutes later and saw it. "Is that from her?" "Yeah. What are you going to do?" I thought about it, thought about writing back, thought about visiting, thought about all the things I could say. Then I picked up the letter, folded it carefully, and put it in a drawer. "Nothing," I said. "I'm not doing anything." "Good," Jenna said, "because some apologies come too late. Some bridges burn too hot to rebuild. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and keep building the life you fought so hard to create." So that's what I did. 5 years after that night on the sidewalk, I stood in front of a room full of donors, legislators, and advocates at the state capitol building in Des Moines. The Grace Torres Foundation had just been awarded a state grant to expand our services across Iowa. We'd helped over 300 young people by then, provided housing, education, legal support, and hope. I was 23 years old. I had a degree, a home, a family I'd chosen, and a purpose that got me out of bed every morning. I looked out at the crowd and saw Jenna in the front row grinning. Lorraine beside her, hands folded neatly in her lap, smiling softly. Catherine in the second row looking proud. Detective Reyes near the back, giving me a small nod, and I thought about how far I'd come. From a girl with $53 and nowhere to go, to a woman who'd built something that mattered. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice steady and strong. 5 years ago, I was 18 years old and homeless. I'd been kicked out by my family and targeted for violence because of greed. I survived because one stranger showed me kindness when I needed it most. This foundation exists because of that kindness, because someone saw me when I was invisible, because someone believed I was worth saving. I paused, looking at Lorraine. She was crying quietly, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We're here for the kids who feel invisible. The ones who've been told they don't matter. The ones who are fighting just to survive. We're here to say, you matter. Your life matters, and we're not giving up on you." The applause was loud and long, but more than that, it was genuine. After the event, Lorraine pulled me aside. "I need to tell you something," she said, taking my hands in hers. "When I handed you that $20 5 years ago, I didn't think it would lead to all this. I just wanted to keep one more kid from dying on the street. But you took that chance and turned it into something I never could have imagined. You saved yourself, Maya. And now you're saving others. I'm so proud of you." I hugged her tight and we both cried. Because this was what healing looked like. Not perfect, not painless, but real, honest. Built on kindness and resilience and the stubborn refusal to let cruelty have the final word. 7 years after the trial, I got the call I'd been half expecting and half dreading. My father had died. Heart attack. Quick. He was 51. His landlord found him and called the number listed as his emergency contact. Somehow, it was still mine. I sat with the news for a long time, trying to figure out what I felt. Sad. Relieved. Guilty for feeling relieved. Angry that I still felt anything at all. The funeral was small. Just me, a handful of his coworkers from the warehouse, and a pastor who'd never met him. No Patricia. No Marcus. They were still in prison and hadn't been granted compassionate release to attend. I stood by the casket and looked at his face, finally at peace in a way he never seemed to be in life. "I forgive you," I whispered. Not because he deserved it, not because it changed anything, but because I was tired of carrying the weight of what he'd done. "I forgive you, and I'm letting you go." And I meant it. After the service, I drove to the cemetery where my mom was buried. I hadn't been there in years. Too painful. But today felt like the right time. I sat on the grass beside her headstone, tracing the letters of her name with my fingers. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. "I wanted to tell you that I'm okay. I know things got really bad for a while, but I made it through. I'm doing good things, helping people, living the kind of life I think you'd be proud of." The wind rustled through the trees, and I closed my eyes, imagining it was her answer. "I miss you every day, but I'm not lost anymore. I found my way, and I'm going to keep going, for you, for me, for everyone who needs someone to believe in them." I stayed there for a long time, just sitting, just breathing, just being. And when I finally got up to leave, I felt lighter than I had in years. 10 years after that night on the sidewalk, the Grace Torres Foundation had helped over 1,000 young people across 3 states. We had 12 full-time staff members, a board of directors, and partnerships with dozens of organizations. I was 28 years old. I had a master's degree in social work. I'd published a book about my story and donated all the proceeds to the foundation. I'd spoken at conferences, testified before legislative committees, and been featured in national media. But more than any of that, I built a life I was proud of. Jenna was a licensed social worker now, running one of our satellite offices in Cedar Rapids. Lorraine was 79 and still volunteering, teaching knitting to kids who needed something calm and steady in their chaotic lives. Catherine had retired from law but stayed on our board, guiding us through legal and financial decisions with the same steady wisdom she'd always had. And me? I woke up every morning in the house I'd bought with my own money, surrounded by people I loved, doing work that mattered. I thought about Patricia and Marcus sometimes, wondered if they'd changed, wondered if they regretted what they'd done. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all. They'd tried to erase me. Instead, I built something they could never destroy. And that was the best revenge of all. This is Revenge Stories, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Help us build this community so we can bring more interesting and exciting stories for you from around the world. Your help is much appreciated. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes, family is the people who show up when everyone else walks away. The stranger who hands you $20 and a warning. The friend who drives across town at midnight because you need her. The woman who takes you in and fights for you when your own father won't. That's real family. The kind that matters. The kind that saves lives. I learned that kindness is never wasted. That one act of generosity can ripple out in ways you'll never see. That sometimes the smallest gesture, a warning, a few dollars, a moment of attention, can be the difference between life and death. I learned that greed destroys everything it touches. That money without character is worthless. That the people who love you don't try to take from you. They give. They protect. They stand beside you when everything falls apart. And I learned that surviving isn't enough. You have to decide what kind of life you're going to build after the worst happens. You have to choose whether you're going to let the people who hurt you define your story, or whether you're going to write a new ending yourself. I chose to write a new ending. And if you're listening to this right now, facing your own impossible situation, carrying your own weight, wondering if you're going to make it through, I need you to hear this. You will survive. You will find your people. You will build something good out of the wreckage. And your story isn't over yet. Not even close. So keep going. Keep fighting. Keep believing that you deserve better. Because you do. Your voice matters. Your life matters. And somewhere out there, someone is waiting to show you the kindness that will change everything. Just like Lorraine did for me. If you've ever been saved by a stranger's kindness or had to build a family from scratch, drop your city in the comments below. Let's remind each other that we're not alone, that hope is real, that good people still exist. And if you need help, please reach out to anyone, a teacher, a counselor, a helpline, a stranger on a corner. Don't give up. Your story deserves a better ending than the one they tried to write for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. This is Maya Torres, and this is my story of survival, strength, and second chances. Stay safe out there, and remember, the family you choose is the one that matters most.